will be as when a man going on a journey called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to one another, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So also he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now, after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled account with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying,
Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here I have made 5 talents more.
His master said to him,
Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter in the joyful of your master.
And he also who had the 2 talents came forward, saying,
Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here I have made 2 talents more.
His master said to him,
Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter in the joyful of your master.
He also who had received the 1 talent came forward, saying,
Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you did not winnow. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you did not winnow. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours.
But his master answered him,
You knew that I reap where I have not sowed, and gather where I have not winnowed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him, and give it to him who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have abundance. But from him who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness. There men will weep and gnash their teeth.
We matter the most to Him, and if we invest more on people, not by making them born again, but through discipleship, there could be more people who would know God as He truly is, and we could be part of His kingdom. Imagine having 5 people, having 5 more, 2 people, and another 2, or even 1-on-1. And those people would soon disciple another 5, 2, and 1. How wonderful could that be? Would you disciple more people for God to have more people in His kingdom? And if we would just be mindful that the Lord's second coming from His long journey would be any moment soon, would you make a step forward to make a difference?
Matthew chapter 25 verse 14 to 15, For it will be as when a man going on a journey called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. In the first verse of the parable, it was delivered by Jesus through an illustration that did not really happen. Again, as we have mentioned earlier, Jesus provides short narratives for his audience to understand more vividly what he wanted to tell. In verse 15, talent was mentioned as the property endowed by the man to his servant. But what really is a talent? Talent comes from the Greek word talanton, which means balance, sum, weight. Again, this talents was used by Jesus in different illustrations as currency in his time, as a special ability for a person, and as a personification of people. Let's tackle first the talent as a currency. In the ancient times, talents are referred to as property or something that was owned by someone and gained it for a long period of time. Talent is a monetary unit that is worth about 20 years of wages for a person's labor. Second, talent as an ability. We usually hear in sermons that they connect and use this parable in showing us how we should use the skills that God bless us. He was made each of us on this earth with our own purpose in life, and that includes us using our God-given talents. Every one of us have been endowed a wide variety of gifts, which could include our skills, abilities, family connection, education, experience, and the list goes on. It will just vary on how we will use them, not for ourselves, but to glory Him through our service. Lastly, talent as people. We can apply it in a way of seeing it as a kingdom of God. We all know that people are more valuable in God's eyes, for He created us. And what could make God happier is to have more people in His kingdom. Also, in verse 15, the man entrusted different amount of talents to each of his servants before he went out to his long journey. Take note that the man did not directly tell his servant what he expected them to do so.
In Matthew 25, verse 16 to 18, it showed what the 3 servants did to the talents that were given to them. The first servant with 5 talents traded his talents and gained 5 more, which goes the same with the second servant with 2 talents. He profited double of what he has. However, the third one was different. He went and dug in the ground to hide his 1 talent. In verse 19, now after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. For the servants have a view of what their master is like and what he wanted them to do so. In verse 20 and 22, both the servant with 5 talents and 2 talents came forward, bringing double of what they previously has. In verse 21 and 23, the master expresses his joy by calling his servants as his good and faithful one, entrusting him much of what he has previously taken care of, and inviting him to enter the joy of his master. Take note that the master repeated the same note twice. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter to the joy of your master. This just implies that we should give more focus on this message, more specifically in the last part saying, enter into the joy of your master. It was as though God was inviting us to His kingdom and His second coming if and only if we do the same as the 2 servants.
However, in the verses 24 to 25, the third servant with 1 talent admitted his fault by saying, Master, I knew you were to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where did you not withdraw. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. He confessed that he was driven by fear, because his master was a hard man. This perception that his master was a hard man is the same perception of what other people have. In the present time, people have mistaken God for this wrong perception or even another perception from who God really is. The servant was too afraid to touch the talent given to him and believed that he should not touch something that was not his. An ancient audience would have approved of the third servant's action and disapproved the other 2 because they profited at the expense of others. In the Mediterranean culture, if you have profited at the expense of others, then this is considered wrong according to their morals and their values. For them, honorable people did not try to get more, and those who automatically tried to are considered thieves. Having these talents distributed to his servants and have control of it is actually common at their time. In that time, greedy people did not want to get accused of profiting at someone's expense because this would be considered shameful. And with this parable, it also depicts the investment, not the hoarding, as the right thing to do. If it approves or accomplishes the right purposes in the right manner. This said investment does not refer to money, and it can be referred to as service, time, and people.
It is possible that we could have the same fate as the third servant, which was elaborated in the verse 28, saying, "So take the talent from him, and give it to him who has the 10 talents. Since for to everyone who has will be more be given, and he will have abundance. But from him who has not, even what he was will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness. There men will weep and gnash their teeth."
The third servant gained nothing or risked nothing. There was no increase because there was no investment. This just shows that the servant has no intention of doing what he should be doing. As a servant, he should have acted in accordance with what his master would expect. He gave emphasis on his personal security, which led this to lose insecurity because of his unwillingness to make even a small effort and risk. Like the servant, we could deal in the same fate if we do the same, being casted out in the outer darkness, wherein there men will weep and gnash their teeth. To sum up, if we look at the talents as currency, Jesus used this parable for us to be aware on how we should use our money. Invest and gain more profit rather than hide, which we would later on spend. Another reason for the talents as our ability. He wanted to use, grow, improve, and take good care of our skills. Since talents are considered as 20 years worth of wages for a person labor, it was said that we were given both time and money to be responsible in cultivating what he was given as to accomplish his will and fulfill our purpose in his return.
This parable tells us that God will hold us accountable for what we have done and for what we have failed to do. This is to notify us to step out and risk for His name's sake. Do not hold on to your life, but surrender it to Him. To live for Christ is to love men with His love, and that is always us.